So this is part two of the software video. I filmed both parts at the same time, and it just turned out to be a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. So let's just jump right into that. Photos is a huge thing you can do on iOS. I think it's kind of underrated how much you can do with photos on iOS. For storing photos and keeping them all on my device, I use Apple Photos. It's built in the system. It's really easy to use. I haven't had a problem with it, but I have heard a few people, have some weird issues with metadata and stuff like that. The one thing to know about using Apple Photos is you are going to have to pay for extra iCloud storage. Because the 5 gigs they give you is not going to be enough unless you only have like 20 photos or something. Google Photos is free to use, but it compresses the image to a certain resolution. I actually use Google Photos as a backup because I had some extra storage there and it just worked out. So check Google Photos out if you don't care about the resolution of your photos. I think it's a fairly big resolution. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I probably should have written it down, but Google Photos free. I don't like the app though. I don't like Google Apps period on the iPhone or the iPad because they try and design the Android app on the iPhone, so it's all Android-esque and it just doesn't feel right. So I try and stay away from the Google apps. I think Google Maps is pretty much the only one I use regularly. So for all of my heavy photo editing needs, and it's pretty rare I do heavy photo editing, I'm probably not the best person to talk on this subject. Most of the photo editing I do is stuff that's going to be in these videos, but I use Pixelmator for that. Pixelmator has all of the great Photoshop features that I've used, and it's a lot easier to use than Photoshop. It's nice to have the touch interface to be able to edit photos, drag things around, color correct things. This is kind of where the Apple Pencil comes in also. The Apple Pencil is really great for photo editing. So when I was doing a lot more blog posts, I would annotate photos a lot. And I still do for like tweets and things like that. I've used two apps over that time period. I've used an app called Pinpoint, and I've used an app called Annotatable, and I think I pronounced those correctly. If I didn't, I'm sorry. Both allow you to highlight what's happening with the photo. Annotatable seems to have a few more features. Pinpoint's just really quick. So if I just want to draw an arrow to something really quick, I pull up Pinpoint. If I want to add a little more detail, Annotatable is great for that as well. So that's kind of it on photos. I'm not a huge photographer. I do more of this video stuff. I had talked about at the beginning of this video about how I've been using Mac Mini as an FTP server to save stuff on. How I control that Mac Mini whenever I need to do something to it, like reboot it or change some settings or whatever, I use an app called TeamViewer. I'm lucky enough to have a license for it. Long story, not going to go into it. There are other applications out there that I probably would recommend more. I just happen to have a license for TeamViewer, so I get some of the pro features. I've also seen this thing going around lately that it's a Bluetooth mouse that certain remote desktop clients, so you can use that when you control a Mac or Windows PC or something like that. And it pairs with your iPad, so that's kind of cool. I'm looking into that. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like TeamViewer supports it, so I might need to switch my client that I've been using. But that would be kind of nice to, move files around and stuff like that. So let's talk utilities. Utilities are just kind of fun apps that do a very, very small select job. And I have quite a few of these I use quite often. The first one I use is Copied. Copied is a universal clipboard manager. What that means is it syncs your clipboard over multiple devices. The nice thing about Copied is it can save multiple things you have in your clipboard history. So there's a Today View widget, so you can add things there. There's also a third-party keyboard you can use, but the third-party keyboard I kind of stay away from because third-party keyboards don't really get a lot of love. The Today View widget is perfect for me. So I swipe down, I add whatever's in my clipboard history that I want to save, and it's there. And then I'll go out there after a week or so. You can kind of clear it all out. I try not to keep things too long. And Opener is one of those small apps that the app itself, when you open it up, doesn't do anything. It's an action extension in the share sheet. So up until a couple days ago, YouTube just got an update to when you load a YouTube page on their website, in Safari, it automatically redirects to their app. But up until then, I was using an app called Opener. So you can hit that, select Opener, and then it'll bring up a list of supported apps, and then it'll move that URL over to an app. So if you're watching this video on their website, you could hit it, open it, and it'll move it over to the iOS app. I use that thing for Twitter, so I can open things up in Tweetbot, cool stuff like that. I use Trello. It's a Kanban system, and I might have pronounced that wrong. But what Trello does is it helps me organize where I am with videos. When I was working on multiple video projects at once, I can see what stage those videos were in. So whether I was writing them, editing them, needed to do audio work or whatever, I could see where I was with those videos. Kind of started doing them just one at a time now because it helps me focus on what's going on. But Trello is a very nice system for seeing where projects are. And it can get a lot more detailed than that. You can work with groups of people, teams. You can add that all together. It's a nice app if you have very large projects you're working on with multiple people. Or you're like me and just forgetful. 1Password, and this will probably be the only app I don't show what any screenshots or anything in the app of, because it's got all my passwords into it and all the usernames and stuff, so I'm not going to even try and show you guys something, just in case I slip up and forget to blur something. But 1Password is a password manager that and that's it, really. It's a password manager. You stores your passwords and suggests passwords and can put secure notes in there, and everyone needs to have a password manager. I've even tried to get my grandparents on a password manager. Unsuccessfully, but I have tried. Everyone should have a password manager. I use this to give me complex passwords, so I have different passwords for different sites I use. So it adds a little bit more security, and I don't have to remember the password. So that's kind of nice. The one thing I like about 1Password over services like LastPass and things like that is you store where the encrypted file is. So I store it in Dropbox, so that way it syncs to multiple devices, and then I just need to know two passwords: my Dropbox password and my 1Password password. Everything else, I can put super complex passwords on there that I never need to know, and that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. But seriously, if you don't have a password manager, please go get one. I recommend 1Password, but LastPass is also a good solution. It just uses cloud storage, so just keep that in mind, and they have had security problems, so just keep that in mind. pCalc. pCalc is a calculator that I use, and it's really crazy that Apple doesn't have a calculator on the iPad. They don't have the stock calculator, but that's fine with me. pCalc's great. I don't use it's really meant for advanced calculations, and I really don't do that. I do simple arithmetic on it, but it's still nice to have a calculator on your iPad. What's great about this is it supports split view, and it also has a today widget, so you can just swipe down and do simple stuff right there. I have the free version installed because I really like the orange on it, which I know is kind of silly. The blue on the pro version does look really nice, don't get me wrong. Really like the blue. But there's something about the orange I just really like, so I have the free version installed on mine. Let's talk entertainment. With iOS 9, Apple obviously added support for split view, which was huge for productivity. And entertainment is definitely not about productivity. It's probably the opposite of it. But I kind of want to cover it because there's a lot of cool stuff on the iPad. Also, in iOS 9, they added picture-in-picture support, so you can be working and you can have a video up. I try not to do this because I'll just end up watching whatever is in picture-in-picture. But nonetheless, it is a very cool feature to have. I really wish more apps would support it. So my big entertainment source, I don't have cable here. I live in America. It's pretty common to have cable here. I don't have cable. I use a service called Plex. And what Plex does is it takes all the movies you have and TV shows. So DVDs, Blu-rays I can take those, I can rip them. I do that all on my Mac Mini. It's a totally different thing. I'm talking about iPads here. But anyways, it stores them on there and it serves them up. And the Plex client for iOS is great. It's one of the ones that supports picture-in-picture. Those are good guys. Appreciate it, guys. If you're watching, appreciate it. Thank you. Thumbs up. Plex is just a great service. I'll probably make a whole video on it because it's awesome. It uses DLNA, so it uses your local network to serve up video content, but you can get the Plex Pass so you can watch it anywhere. It's cool service. Go look it up if you don't know about it. But I use that for primarily all my TV shows and all my movies. Again, only stuff that you own. As I started doing more and more YouTube stuff, I started watching more and more YouTube videos. Kind of crazy how that worked. One of the things in the YouTube app that drove me nuts is it didn't support picture-in-picture mode, which is crazy because I think that's like the most ideal app for that, watching short video and while doing other things. Like, it just makes sense that that's there. But I can kind of see they want to keep you in the app because it's part of the thing. And plus, I think there's a rule in the iOS guideline and the app guidelines about serving up ads in picture-in-picture mode. I don't think you can, so that kind of makes sense on why YouTube hasn't done that. But besides the point, enter an app called ProTube. It's a YouTube client. I don't care for the design, but it supports two things. Split view, which the YouTube app does, fair enough, but it also supports picture-in-picture mode, which is great. So if I want to just throw a video up while I'm doing something else, I use that app. Like I said, I don't really care for the design, but it's fine. It's totally workable. I use Instapaper as my Read It Later service. Read It Later services has been in the news a lot lately. Pocket just got sold. Instapaper was in the news because they had some weird downtime. It's kind of a weird time to be getting into Read It Later services. I've used Instapaper forever. I like it. I think that they're the way they strip all the content out of the when you add a site to the Instapaper thing, it adds a nice little reading view to it. I think that looks really good. I've always used Instapaper, like I said, so I don't really plan on switching. But if I did, I'd probably just switch to the Safari reading list, because it's kind of a weird time to look into Read It Later services. But Instapaper, thumbs up. They got bought by Pinterest, and they made all the features free, which is a little weird. I kind of have this feeling Instapaper isn't long for the world, which I will be bummed about if that service ever goes down. But we'll see. But go check it out. At the very least, go check it out. It's kind of cool. I have made a whole video about this app, app walkthrough on this one. Overcast. It just got a big 3.0 update, so my video is now kind of obsolete, at least the design-wise. The 3.0 got a big design overhaul. It got a lot of the iOS 10 stuff like cards and things like that. But one of my favorite features now is you can hold down on the right side of a podcast when you're in like the playlist view or whatever, and you can reorganize your podcast, which I do a lot. I usually move like tech and news shows up higher because, you know, they're kind of time sensitive and time relevant. So that's kind of a cool feature. You can check out my other video. All the other stuff is still relevant. Smart speed, all that cool stuff. It's a really great app to have. It's my favorite podcast player. If not my favorite app, it's my favorite podcast player. I think if Overcast was tied with an app, it'd be Tweetbot. And Tweetbot is my Twitter client of choice. It's simple. I hate the main Twitter or the first party Twitter client. The first party Twitter client is there's a few things Tweetbot doesn't get, like the survey questionnaire things that people can put out, but I can live with that. It's a great application. Highly recommend Tweetbot. If you don't like the first party Twitter client, go check it out. It's nice. Support third party developers. Yeah. For music, I'm kind of boring. I don't listen to a whole lot of music when I want to listen to Hamilton or something like that. I use Apple Music. Apple Music is great. It's built into the system. The reason why I picked Apple Music, or I was a Spotify user, and the reason why I went over to Apple Music is because of Siri integration. It's really nice to be able to say, hey, that word, play Hamilton, or play, you know, whatever, Van Halen, Def Leppard, whatever. It's really nice to be able to say, play that stuff, and it just start playing, especially while you're driving or anything like that. I don't have CarPlay in my car, so it's kind of nice just to have that feature. So the final thing I want to talk about in this video are games. Games are a huge portion of the App Store. I don't know the exact numbers, but I would not be surprised to find out games are the biggest part of the App Store, period. I'm sure they are. I would bet money on that, because there is no way games aren't. I mean, if you want to make money off the App Store, the only way to make it is make a game. But anyways, I like to play games on the on my iPad. It's pretty cool. I recently picked up this controller. It's a made for iPhone controller, so it's wireless, uses lightning to charge, cool things like that. It's really great. It feels really sturdy. I tried the Nimbus Steel Series one, but it didn't feel as sturdy for whatever reason. Here's the box right here. You probably can't see the name. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like iPad Ultimate? I don't think it's that. But I'll put a link in the description below. I like it. It's really nice. So if a game supports the made for iPhone controller, you can use the controller. You don't have to use the touchscreen, which feels a lot better. When I did play video games a lot, I was a console gamer because I don't like Windows. Please don't ever make me use Windows again. But one of my favorite games ever, period, is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And when it got the iOS port, I downloaded it immediately, and I was kind of bummed because it just didn't feel right with touch controls. A little later on, I want to say 6 months, but maybe it was more like a year. I don't know. I don't really remember. It got support for the controller, and I didn't pick one up right away because I had the version I could play it on my Xbox 360 as, you know, weird ports and stuff like that, whatever. But anyways, now that I have this controller, I've been going through that game again, and it's really fun. It feels really good to use a controller and play that game again. Other games like Crashland support that, and then you have games like Roller Coaster Tycoon, the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. I used to spend so much time playing that game. It's on the iPad, and it feels so good to use touch controls with that game. I cannot believe it. That game makes so much sense in touch controls, and like games like that are really fun. I can't stand free-to-play games that you have a timer and things like that. I tried playing the Sin City game for iPad, the new one, and it's just like no. It's weird. No, it kind of takes the fun out of it, right? Like it kind of takes the fun out of the whole thing. So anyways, there's that. There's also a open source project called Providence. What Providence is, it's an emulator. So you can install it on your iPad. You have to have Xcode on a Mac to do it. I'll link it in the description below. There's install instructions for it, but basically you gotta have Xcode. And if you're not an Apple developer, you can use a free account, but it'll only run for 7 days. If you're an Apple developer, it'll run for a year, and that's just because it's not an actual app on the App Store. It's not signed, so it just doesn't work that way. So what Providence does is it's an emulator. So those legally obtained game ROMs that you have that you've built yourself or however the laws in your country work, you could run them on your iPad. And that's pretty cool. So you play games like Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, whatever you like. I know it supports Super Nintendo, original Nintendo, Game Boy. I think there might be PlayStation support in there. I don't remember. I'm a Super Nintendo guy myself, so. But anyways, those games, you can play them. And the really cool thing about Providence is it supports the made for iPhone controller. So you can use an actual controller while playing these games, and you're not having to use touchscreen, which those games were never built for. So anyways, go check that out. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description below. It's got install instructions and things like that. So that's the software I use on my iPad. Like I said, on the next one, I'm going to go into how I created this video off of my iPad, all the steps, all the apps that I've used. I'll give you a hint. If you're looking for a multi-track video editor, it's called Luma Fusion. And like I said, I'm going to go over all of it in the next video. I'm going to try and have it up before next weekend, but I may not be able to get to it. Maybe next weekend that video comes out. Anyways, if you guys have any questions, let me know below. If you have any apps or something you'd like me to try out, leave it in the comments. I'm always up to try more apps and new stuff. So let me know if you guys have any questions or would like to see a video on something. Thanks, guys.